She didn't know that running toward him would change everything. That the stranger who caught her would become the man who'd move heaven and earth to keep her breathing. The snow had been falling for 3 days. Marissa Dunbar stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the remote Adirondack Lodge, her Canon 5D Mark IV hanging loose around her neck, and watched the world disappear into white. The assignment had seemed simple enough: capture the untouched winter wilderness for National Geographic's climate change series. 2 weeks of solitude, pristine landscapes, and silence so complete, it felt like prayer. She hadn't expected him. Elliot Kingsley had arrived on the second day, a ghost stepping out of a black Range Rover with nothing but a leather duffel and eyes that looked like they'd forgotten how to see color. Ash blonde hair, perfectly cut but somehow lifeless. Icy blue eyes that seemed to look through everything without really seeing anything at all. He'd nodded once at Tom, the lodge owner, spoken in a voice like expensive whiskey, left too long in the glass, and disappeared into the opposite wing. For 3 days, they'd existed in parallel universes. Marissa chasing light through frozen forests. Elliot sitting by windows, staring at nothing. A man so carefully blank it hurt to look at him. She hadn't cared enough to wonder why. Not until the 4th night. The trail had been perfect. Marissa had hiked 2 miles into the backcountry, chasing the way late afternoon light turned birch trees into cathedral columns. Her breath plumed white. Her fingers ached inside her gloves. But the shot. God, the shot was worth it. She was lining up the frame when she heard the voices. Low. Urgent. Male. Marissa froze, instinct sharp as a blade. The forest wasn't supposed to have people. She crouched low behind a fallen pine and listened. Can't afford loose ends. Not now. Not with the election 8 months out. The voice was smooth, practiced. The kind of voice that belonged in boardrooms and campaign rallies. She's seen too much. You know what has to be done. Marissa's heart kicked against her ribs. But her hands, always steadier behind a lens than anywhere else in life, moved without permission. She raised the camera, removed the lens cap, and through the 200M telephoto, she saw him. Senator Richard Harlow, silver-haired, square-jawed, the face from 1,000 billboards promising family values and American dreams. He stood in a clearing 50 yards ahead, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. Between them, cable tied to a tree, was a woman. Young. Latina. Bloodied. Terrified. Marissa's finger found the shutter button. Click. 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 The sound was barely a whisper, swallowed by wind and snow. But in that clearing, one of the men's heads snapped up. Did you hear that? Marissa didn't wait. She ran. The woods swallowed her whole. Branches whipping her face, snow dragging at her boots. Behind her, shouts. The crunch of pursuit. She didn't look back. Just pushed harder, lungs burning, the camera bag bouncing against her spine like a second heartbeat. The lodge lights appeared through the trees, warm and impossibly far. Her foot caught a root and she stumbled, went down hard, scrambled up, kept running. Please. God. Please. And then she saw him. Elliot stood on the wraparound porch, coffee cup forgotten in his hand. His gaze locked on her, crashing through the forest. For half a second, their eyes met. His ice blue and suddenly, startlingly awake, hers wild with terror. He moved. She didn't know a man could move like that. Setting down his cup with deliberate care, and then covering the distance between them in smooth, controlled strides. Not running. Not panicking. Just there, solid and certain, as she stumbled into the clearing. Marissa hit his chest at full speed and his arms came around her, catching her, holding her steady like he'd been waiting his whole life to do exactly this. Breathe, he said quietly. His voice was different now. No longer that dead, hollow sound. Alert. Focused. I need you to breathe, Marissa. She pulled back, gasping. How do you know my... Tom mentioned your name. Doesn't matter. His hands moved to her shoulders, steadying her. What's wrong? What are you running from? Men. Armed men. I saw. She couldn't catch her breath. Senator Harlow. He has a woman. They're going to kill her. I took photos. They saw me. Elliot's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Something cold and calculating. How many men? 3. Maybe more. Did they follow you here? I think. Yes. Yes, they must have. All right. His hand found hers. Warm, steady, real. Come with me. Stay close. He guided her toward the lodge entrance just as headlights swept through the trees. 2 black SUVs moving fast. Elliot positioned Marissa behind him. Not roughly, but with quiet certainty. And waited. The SUVs stopped. Doors opened. 3 men emerged, the same ones from the clearing. The one who'd heard her camera stepped forward. We're looking for someone, he said. A woman. She came this way. This is private property. Elliot's voice was polite, almost gentle. You're trespassing. We don't want trouble. Just the woman. There's no woman here. The man's eyes flicked to Marissa, barely visible behind Elliot's shoulder. We can see her right there. No, Elliot said simply. You don't. Listen, friend. I'm sure you don't want to mess with Elliot Kingsley. The words dropped like stones into still water. And this woman is under my protection. So you have 2 choices. You can leave now. Or you can explain to Senator Harlow why you picked a fight with someone who can end his campaign with a single phone call. The silence that followed was absolute. Marissa felt it. The shift in the air. The way the armed men suddenly looked uncertain. The way the lead man's hand moved away from his hip. Kingsley, he repeated slowly. Yes. Elliot's voice never rose. Never hardened. But there was steel underneath, cold and unbreakable. Now, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to get back in your vehicles and leave. After that, I start making calls. And trust me, you don't want me making calls. For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Then the lead man nodded once. This isn't over. Yes, Elliot said quietly. It is. The men retreated. Engines started. Headlights swept away through the trees. And just like that, it was over. Elliot stood perfectly still for a long moment, his back still to Marissa, his shoulders carrying tension like a held breath. Then, slowly, he turned. Are you hurt? He asked. No. Marissa couldn't find words. You just... How did you... Not here. He took her elbow gently. Inside. We need to talk. The lodge's main room was all stone fireplace and leather furniture, warm and solid and safe. Elliot guided Marissa to a chair, then moved to the fireplace, putting distance between them like he needed space to think. You're Elliot Kingsley, Marissa said slowly, pieces clicking into place. The tech billionaire, the one who she stopped, remembering headlines from 6 months ago. Breakdown. Scandal. Disappearance. Yes. He didn't turn around. His hands were steady on the mantel, but she could see the white of his knuckles. They left because of your name. They left because Harlow can't afford to make an enemy of me. Not publicly. Not 8 months before an election. His voice was flat. Factual. Money has many uses. Intimidation is one of them. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. You need to leave. He cut her off, still not looking at her. Disappear for a while. Tonight. As soon as possible. But if you would let me protect you, I'll arrange transport. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you. Marissa stood. What? No. I have evidence. Photos. I need to go to the police. The FBI. And you will. Now he turned, and what she saw in his face stopped her cold. Not anger. Something worse. Fear. But not from here. They know where you are now. They know you're with me. Harlow will regroup. He'll send more people. People who won't be intimidated by a name. Then we call the police now. The police are 4 hours away in this weather. Maybe more. His jaw was tight. I can have a helicopter here in 90 minutes. It'll take you somewhere Harlow can't reach. Somewhere you can turn over the evidence safely. But what about the woman? She will be safe if you are. Harlow already knows you are aware, so he won't harm her until you're dead, he explained, and a shiver ran down her spine. What about you? I'll stay here. Make it look like you're still with me. Buy you time. That's... Marissa shook her head. That's insane. You'd be putting yourself in danger for... I'm not as easy a prey as you think. His voice was final. I'm calling the helicopter. He pulled out his phone, started making calls. Marissa watched him. This stranger who'd become her shield in the span of minutes. This broken billionaire who'd somehow found purpose in protecting someone he didn't know. Why? She asked quietly when he hung up. Elliot was silent for a long moment. Then, because I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you, and I'd done nothing. You don't even know me. No. He finally met her eyes, and what she saw there. The raw, honest anguish. Took her breath away. But I know what it's like to fail someone, to not be there when it mattered. And I'm not. His voice cracked. Steadied. I'm not doing that again. Before she could respond, the sound of helicopter blades cut through the night. The goodbye was brief. Mechanical. Elliot walked her to the helicopter, his face blank, his eyes carefully empty. He helped her inside, handed her camera bag to the pilot. They'll take you to a federal building in Boston, he said over the noise of the rotors. FBI agents I trust. You'll be safe. Elliot. Go. It wasn't cruel. Just final. Please. The door closed. The helicopter lifted. And through the window, Marissa watched him standing in the snow, hands in his pockets, face tilted up. A man watching something precious disappear into the dark. She pressed her palm against the glass. He didn't wave. To her, he is cold, and she was fortunate enough to earn his promise of safety. She didn't see the intensity of his gaze on her, and she couldn't see the single tear that escaped from his left eye. Most importantly, she couldn't hear him whisper her name with care. I'm sorry, Claire, but I will keep Marissa safe, even if it costs me my own life. The FBI took her statement. Secured the photographs. Promised protection. Marissa spent 3 days in a safe house in Boston, giving depositions, identifying faces, building a case that would destroy Richard Harlow's political career. She asked about Elliot twice. Both times, the agents said he was fine. Safe. No longer involved. She didn't believe them. On the 4th day, they moved her to a different location. Standard procedure, they said. Harlow's people were getting aggressive. They needed to keep her moving. The new safe house was a brownstone in Brooklyn. Nicer. Quieter. 2 agents stationed outside. Marissa tried to settle in. Tried to focus on editing her other photos, the ones from before the nightmare. But her mind kept circling back to ice blue eyes and steady hands, and a voice saying, I'm not doing that again. What had he meant? Who had he failed? She was still wondering when she heard the gunshot. It happened fast. The window exploding inward. Glass everywhere. Marissa hitting the floor on instinct, her photographer's reflexes saving her life. The second shot went high, missing her by inches. She crawled toward the hallway, heart slamming against her ribs, and heard shouting. The agents outside. More gunfire. Then, terribly, silence. Footsteps on the stairs. Marissa's hand found her phone. She dialed 911 with shaking fingers, whispered the address, and shoved the phone under the couch. The door burst open. 2 men. Not the same ones from the lodge. Professionals. One raised his weapon. The third shot caught her in the shoulder. Pain exploded, white-hot and devastating. Marissa went down, her vision graying at the edges. She heard voices. Orders. Something about securing the evidence and cleaning this up. Then, distantly, sirens. The men cursed. Ran. And Marissa was alone, bleeding onto hardwood floors, trying to remember how to breathe. Elliot, she thought, and didn't know why his name was the last thing in her mind before the darkness took her. She woke to beeping. White walls, the antiseptic smell of a hospital, and voices. Low, urgent, angry. Don't care what the prognosis is. I want every specialist in the country if that's what it takes. I want... Mr. Kingsley, please. You need to. Don't tell me what I need. The voice was wrecked. Barely recognizable. Just save her. Please. God, please, just save her. Marissa tried to open her eyes. Couldn't. Her body felt like lead. The bullet nicked her subclavian artery. A different voice. Clinical. Tired. We've stopped the bleeding, but she lost a lot of blood. The next 48 hours are critical. Even if she wakes up, there could be complications. Nerve damage. Infection. I'm sorry, but you need to prepare yourself. No? Elliot's voice cracked. No. She's going to wake up. She's going to be fine. She has to be fine because I can't. A sound like breaking. I can't lose someone else. I can't. Not again. Not her. Silence. Then the doctor. Softer, you should get some rest, Mr. Kingsley. You've been here for 18 hours. I'm not leaving her. Sir, I'm not leaving. Footsteps. A door closing. And then, closer, the sound of a chair scraping across tile. Marissa felt something warm close around her hand. Felt the tremor in those fingers. I'm sorry. Elliot's voice was barely a whisper. God, Marissa, I'm so sorry. I thought keeping my distance would keep you safe. I assigned protection. Good people. The best I could find. But it wasn't enough. It's never enough. His forehead pressed against their joined hands. I couldn't protect my baby sister. He sobbed. I did everything but couldn't detect the one person that mattered. He lifted his head. She felt his thumb trace across her knuckles. I came to that lodge to disappear. To stop feeling anything. To just exist until I figured out if there was any point to existing at all. His voice dropped to barely audible, and then you ran into my arms. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt alive. I felt like maybe I could be the person who showed up, who didn't fail, who was there when it mattered. His grip tightened. But I failed you anyway. Thought my money and my name and my carefully placed guards would be enough. And you still got shot. You're still lying here, maybe dying, because I wasn't there. His voice turned fierce, desperate. So I need you to wake up, Marissa. I need you to fight. Because if you don't, if I lose you too, I'm going to burn Harlow's world to ash. But I will still not be satisfied. I'll become the worst version of myself. The one I've been trying so hard not to be. He leaned closer. She felt his breath against her temple. But more than that, more than revenge or justice or any of it, I just need you to live. Because in 3 days at a lodge in the middle of nowhere, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Purpose. the feeling that maybe I wasn't beyond saving. His voice cracked. I love you, Marissa. I don't know how or why. I just know that the thought of a world without you in it is unbearable. So please, please wake up. He pressed his lips to her forehead. And then he stayed there, holding her hand, whispering prayers and promises and apologies into the silence. And somewhere in the darkness, Marissa fought her way back toward his voice. She woke slowly, painfully. Every breath felt like fire in her chest. But she woke. Her eyes opened to dim hospital lighting, to the steady beep of monitors, to Elliot slouched in a chair beside her bed, his hand still clasped around hers, his face buried in his other arm on the mattress. He looked terrible, ash blonde hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wearing the same flannel shirt from the lodge, now rumpled and slept in. Elliot, she whispered. He jerked awake like he'd been electrocuted. His eyes found hers, ice blue and bloodshot, and suddenly devastatingly alive. Marissa. Her name came out broken, reverent. He stood, leaned over her, one hand cupping her face with infinite gentleness. You're awake. Thank God. Thank God you love me, she whispered. He froze. You heard everything. Her good hand came up to cover his. Claire, the guilt, everything. For a moment, he just stared at her. Then he pulled back, putting distance between them, his face shuddering closed. You weren't supposed to hear that. I'm sorry. You don't need to. I wasn't trying to burden you with... Elliot. She stopped him. Come here. Marissa. Please. He moved closer. Hesitant. Uncertain. So different from the controlled man who'd faced down armed men without flinching. I heard you, she said quietly. I heard every word. Please. Her voice caught. Tell me about your baby sister. You shouldn't be bothered about. Please, Elliot. So he told her everything. Her name was Claire. She was 16. I was 22, just starting my first company, working 100-hour weeks, convinced I was going to change the world. His voice was hollow. Dead. She called me one night. Said she was scared. That Dad was drinking again. That things were bad. And I told her I was busy. That I'd call her back. That it could wait. She killed herself that night. Pills. Left a note that said she just wanted someone to listen. And His voice broke completely. I never called her back. I was too busy. Too focused on success and money, and proving I was worth something. And she died thinking no one cared. Marissa's chest ached. I built everything after that, Elliot continued. The company. The empire. All of it was trying to make up for failing her. Trying to prove I could save people if I just had enough resources. Enough power. Enough control. A bitter laugh. And then 6 months ago, I realized it was all a lie. That I'd built a prison out of guilt. That I was so busy trying to save everyone that I'd forgotten how to be human. Elliot, you need to know. Her voice caught. What happened to Claire wasn't your fault. You were 22. You were doing your best. And tears spilled over. She wouldn't want you carrying that guilt for 15 years. You don't know that. I do. She squeezed his hand as hard as she could manage. Because I know what it's like to witness suffering. To see people at their worst and their best. And I know that the people who hurt the most are usually the ones trying hardest to save everyone else. Elliot's jaw worked. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. You didn't fail me, Marissa continued. You sent protection. You did everything you could. And I'm still here. I'm alive. Because of you. You got shot because of me. Because I pulled you into this. I got shot because Harlow is a monster. Not because you failed. She pulled his hand to her chest, over her heart. Feel that? I'm breathing. I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. A sound escaped him. Half sob, half laugh. He sank back into the chair, forehead dropping to their joined hands. I meant what I said, he whispered. About loving you. I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But when I thought you might die, he looked up at her. I realized I'd give up everything. The company, the money, my name. If it meant you'd live, that's not gratitude. That's not guilt. That's love, she finished softly. I know. You don't have to love me back. I'm not asking. Good. Because I wasn't planning to. She smiled at his stricken expression. Yet. Ask me again when I'm not on morphine and can think straight. Relief flooded his face. He kissed her knuckles. Deal. But Elliot? Yes? Thank you. For not leaving. For being here. For... Her voice caught. For being the person who showed up. He closed his eyes. Always, he whispered. For you, always. The recovery was slow. 3 days in the ICU. A week in a regular room. Physical therapy. Nerve damage that meant her right shoulder might never be quite the same. But Elliot was there through all of it. He hired the best doctors. Brought her books and flowers and terrible hospital cafeteria coffee that he claimed was artisanal. He helped her practice gripping a camera with her injured arm, patient, and encouraging even when she wanted to scream with frustration. And slowly, carefully, they learned each other. She discovered he was funny. Dry, self-deprecating humor that caught her off guard. He discovered she was stubborn, refusing to accept limitations, pushing herself harder than her doctors recommended. And through it all, a question neither of them asked. What happens when this is over? The answer came 2 weeks after she was discharged from the hospital. Marissa was staying in a corporate apartment Elliot owned. Secure, comfortable, close to his office so he could check on her between meetings. He'd moved back to his life, slowly, reluctantly. Board meetings, press conferences, the world he'd fled to that lodge. But every evening he came to her. They'd cook dinner together, talk, exist in that strange liminal space between friendship and something more, something neither of them had the courage to name, until the night Kane Webb knocked on the door. The FBI agent looked tired but satisfied. We got him, he said without preamble. Harlow. Between Mrs. Dunbar's photographs and Ana Flores's testimony, we have enough for multiple federal charges. Kidnapping, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. He's going away for a long time. Relief flooded through Marissa. And Ana? She's safe, protected, already working with victims' advocacy groups. Kane smiled. You saved her life, Miss Dunbar. We saved her life, Marissa corrected, glancing at Elliot. But Kane's expression had darkened. There's one problem. Harlow's lawyers are trying to make a deal. They want the charges reduced in exchange for... He paused. In exchange for information on Elliot's past. The room went cold. What? Elliot's voice was deadly quiet. They've dug up the Claire situation. The suicide. They're planning to spin it. Claim you drove your sister to her death through neglect. That you're an unstable, unreliable. Kane looked genuinely apologetic. They want to use it to discredit your involvement. To make it look like you coerced Miss Dunbar's testimony. That's Marissa started, but Elliot cut her off. They can have it. His voice was flat. All of it. If it means Harlow goes to prison. I don't care. Elliot. No, Marissa stood, ignoring the pull in her shoulder. You can't let them. It's my past. My guilt. My burden. He wouldn't look at her. If it saves Ana. If it keeps you safe. It's worth it. Kane, Marissa said, turning to the agent. What if we go public first? Tell the truth about what happened. About how Elliot protected me. It might help, Kane admitted. But Harlow's team will still drag him through the mud. They'll make Claire's death front-page news. They'll let them. Marissa's voice was steel. She crossed to her camera bag, pulled out her laptop. I have something better than a press conference. I'm a Pulitzer Prize winner, she said quietly. People trust my work. My perspective. What if I write the story? Not just about Harlow. About everything. About a man who came to the mountains, broken and chose to save a stranger anyway. About sacrifice and protection and what real heroism looks like. She looked at Elliot. Let me tell your story. The real one. Not the one Harlow's lawyers want to sell. Elliot stared at her. Marissa, you stood up for me. Let me stand up for you. For a long moment, silence. Then Kane cleared his throat. If you can publish before they file their motion, which is in 3 days, it might work. Public opinion could force them to back down. I can have it done in 2, Marissa said. Kane nodded. Then I'll hold them off as long as I can. He headed for the door, paused. For what it's worth, you two make a hell of a team. The door closed behind him. Marissa and Elliot stood in the middle of the living room, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. You don't have to do this, Elliot said finally. I meant what I said. I don't care if they destroy my reputation. But I care. She moved closer. I care because you're not the man they want to paint you as. You're not some heartless billionaire who let his sister die. You're someone who made a mistake at 22 and has spent 15 years trying to make up for it. And that, her voice caught, that deserves to be known. Why? The question was raw, honest. Why does it matter so much to you? Marissa looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who'd stayed by her hospital bed for days. Who'd fought his way back from a breakdown to protect a stranger. Who loved her with a fierce, terrified devotion that still took her breath away. And she knew. Because I love you too, she said quietly. Elliot went absolutely still. What? I love you, Elliot Kingsley. The words came easier the second time. I think I started loving you the moment you caught me in the snow. And I kept loving you through every terrible, beautiful moment since. So, yes, I'm going to tell your story. I'm going to make sure the world knows who you really are. Because you deserve that. And because, she smiled through tears, because I'm done pretending I don't want this. Want you. Want us. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle and trembling, and achingly careful of her injuries. Say it again, he whispered. I love you, Marissa. I love you. I love you. He kissed her. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Elliot's forehead dropped to hers. I'm sorry, he gasped. I shouldn't have. You're still recovering. I didn't mean to. Shut up. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him back, and kissed me again. So he did. This time slower. Sweeter. A promise instead of a confession. When they finally pulled apart, both smiling like idiots, Marissa touched his face. We're going to win this, she said. Together. Together, he agreed. And for the first time since Claire's death, Elliot Kingsley believed it. The article published 48 hours later. Marissa wrote it in a fever of purpose. Every word chosen carefully, every image placed with precision. She told the story of a photographer who witnessed a crime, of a broken billionaire who chose protection over peace, of sacrifice and love and the quiet heroism of showing up when it mattered most. She wrote about Claire, about a 22-year-old drowning in his own ambition, who made a choice he'd regret for the rest of his life. About 15 years of guilt transformed into purpose, The piece went viral within hours. Millions of views, thousands of shares, comment sections filled with support, with people sharing their own stories of loss and guilt and redemption. Harlow's legal team dropped their motion. The senator pled guilty to all charges. And somewhere in the chaos, between interviews and phone calls and the wild media frenzy, Marissa and Elliot found moments of quiet. Moments where they could just be two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided it was the best thing that had ever happened. It was 6 months later. The brownstone in Park Slope had good light. That was the first thing Marissa noticed when Elliot showed it to her.